Hi everyone. I wanted to make a quick video to demonstrate something. As you can see here on the screen, this is a question that was posted in my campus class out on the discussion board for this week. And so this particular student says, first of all, I'm having problems. I've got two pictures in the header separated from one another. I've used Flexbox and I've justified content space between, but it still doesn't look like they're going to the edge of the box. Any help? So that's the first issue. The second issue is I also need to put words on top of the pictures in the first section. I'm trying not to mess with the display, and I do it with only Flexbox, but I can't get it to stack. Any helps? Now, that's important to understand that here's the question. The student is doing exactly what they ought to be doing. They're posting it out to the discussion board so that everyone else has an opportunity to provide some support. Now, you'll notice that a different student came in and said, hey, I'm sure you've already tried this, but if you hadn't, did you try and put margins to space out the pictures and get them to move? Maybe that won't be the end result, but it could help you get past this bump. So there's a great response to it. Here's my response. You know, we can go ahead and talk about this in class, but when you're posting a problem like this, it's probably well worth putting a picture or two, and you can do a quick screen capture and post that picture with it, or perhaps a screen capture of your code. And that way people actually have something to work with. So the reason I'm sharing all of this is for two purposes. One is so that we can actually look at the issues, but secondly, that when you do have an issue like this, providing a picture or a snippet of code to help us understand what's going on really is beneficial. Okay, so anyway, having said that then, I thought we would take a quick attack on problem number one here. So we have two images inside of a header. We're using Flexbox and we're using justified content. And what's the problem? Okay, so over here, I have gone ahead and you'll notice that I've created a new document. There's my header. It has two images in it, and I'm just using two images out of our download. And in this particular case, I'm going to do all of this in one page so we can just see it all on one screen. So based on the description, I'm going to create a header selector. I'm going to turn it into a Flexbox container. And so I do display flex. There, now it's a Flexbox container, and then the student said that they used justify content and they used space between. Okay, so save. So here is the markup down here. Here is the CSS styling. I have my web server already running, so if I right-click on demo and I say run, here's the result. So here's the picture. Here's the picture. Now my screen is pretty small, but you'll notice over here on the left there is a distinct space. And even though my screen is not big enough, there really is a space there on the right too, even though it's not easily seen. So the question we've got is, how can we figure out what's causing that space? So I'm going to right click on the picture and I'm going to choose inspect. Now you'll notice that I'm going to use this a lot in the class. So if you look at our videos that I've already got out there, this inspect tool is just the cat's meow. Now I'm using Chrome. So you'll notice that where I clicked on the screen was the image. And if we look at the image, there is no margin, there is no bordering, there is no padding, it's just the picture itself. So that doesn't account for this gap over here on the left. So if I click on header, you'll notice same result. There is no space, there's no margin, there's no padding, there's no border. Well, dang, so what's causing it? But if I click on body, notice there's margin all the way around the body. And if I hover over it, in the background, you can see that there's that brownish outline around the pictures, and we see the gap. So it's the body that's causing this gap. So this tool really does help me see what's going on. Now that I know where the problem is, if I come back over here to get rid of it, all I have to do is this. I come in, I write a new selector for body, and I simply say margin 0. And I save. That's it. So it goes back to the body and it says take off all of the margins. Now I'm going to switch back over here to Chrome, and the question that might be asked is, well, where did this come from? And if we look up here above, you'll notice it says the user agent style sheet. Now if you remember back from the 230 class, what's the user agent? It's the browser. So every browser comes with a built-in CSS style sheet. And in this case, their style sheet, the Chrome style sheet, says on the body, add this margin. And that's where it's coming from. But now I have gone ahead, I've written my own CSS rule. So if I come back to the page, and we're watching this gap right here on the left, if I reload the page, notice the picture now moves, that gap narrows. And if I come back to my web developer tool, notice the margin is gone because the user agent style sheet margin has been overwritten by my own. It's that easy. So we can use the tools to help us understand what we're looking at, and therefore we can attack the problem. All right, coming back. So that seems to take care of the first issue. The second issue here is I also need to put the words on top of the picture. Now, this could be interpreted in a couple of different ways, meaning we want the words to actually stack above the picture, or it could mean that we actually want the words to appear in front of the picture, meaning closer to our eyeball so we can see the word and then we'll see the picture behind it. And I don't know which of those two interpretations this is. Okay, so what I did is in class, I said to the students, all right, let's take it literally. We want the words to appear above. How do we solve this? And there were a number of answers provided, and I would hope that at this point you might even stop and pause the video and ask yourself, all right, if I want the words to appear above the picture, how could I do that? Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be a CSS solution. It could just be a simple HTML solution. So one of the students said, well, we've got the figure element in HTML, which is really meant to add captions to pictures. And so we could come in here and we could add the figure element, and then we could take the picture, the image, move it inside of the figure, and then we could add the fig caption. And notice I'm putting the fig caption first, and then I'm going to write whatever the text happens to be. And in this case, I'm just writing the word anvil. There it is. And then I'm going to just repeat this for the second image. And so there's my figure. I move the image inside of it, and I'm just going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to add a fig caption. There it is. And I'll just say cactus for this particular picture. Notice I haven't changed the CSS at all. All I've done is added some additional HTML markup. And so having saved this document, if I jump back out here to my browser window and I reload the page, now notice my text appears above the picture. Wow, that was an easy solution. All right, but remember there's a possible second part of that question. So what if this student didn't mean on top, meaning above? What if they meant on top, meaning in front of? Well, that complicates things. So again, with that interpretation, I said back to my students, all right, let's assume that that's what this student meant. What are some things that we can do? And again, I would encourage you to pause the video right now and ask yourself the same question. In terms of what I know about HTML and CSS, what are some of my possible solutions? And so, having put that out to the students. Again, they contributed some suggestions, and there were a couple of suggestions. One was positioning, and the other one was z-index. And I think those are absolutely perfect solutions. But when we talked about positioning, people were a little hesitant, and so we just did what we would normally do: CSS, position, hit enter, and it came up, and everyone seems to like W3 Schools. So we went out here and we find out that, hey, there are a number of ways of doing positioning, and this sentence right here sometimes gets overlooked. And so if you come out to W3 Schools, this is something to pay attention to. Elements are then positioned using the top, bottom, left, right, so we tell it where we want it to move to. However, these positions will not work unless the position property is set first. So that means we have to say position, colon, and then static, relative, fixed, or absolute. Remember, static is the default, so we really probably don't want to use it. We would then say relative, fixed, or absolute, and then we would come down here and we would get a little bit more detail on how to implement those things. So there's one of our resources that we could use. Okay, so coming back in here, the very first thing that we want to do is we want to make the header the parent object for setting up our boundaries on things, okay? And then we could do the figure as a sub-object. So in this case, what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to say figure position relative. And again, if you go back to the W3 Schools, you'll find that by adding that statement, the figure now becomes the containing object for everything inside of it, which is going to be the picture and is going to be the caption. So that's really all I'm doing with figure. And you'll notice I'm not moving it anywhere. I'm simply positioning it. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a rule for fig caption. And this I'm going to position, and I'm going to use absolute positioning on this one. So what this does is it says to the fig caption, you're going to move around, but you're only going to move around within the figure because of this rule up here on lines 15, 16, and 17. Okay, so position absolute. And then I have to decide, where do I want this fig caption to go? And so we decided that in the center of the screen is good enough. Okay, so I'm going to use top, and then I'm simply going to say 50%. So that should move it from the top down 50%. And then I'm going to say from the left also 50%. So again, that should put it roughly in the center. And then because I want it to set in front of the picture, meaning closer to my eyeballs, I'm going to use the z-index, and the higher the number, the closer to my eyeballs. And so I'm just going to say 10 at this particular point. Now, because this text is going to be sitting over the top of a picture, it might be hard to read. So I'm just going to add one other rule here, and I'm going to change the color of the text to white. And that should make it a little bit easier to see. That's it. All right, so let's see what the results are. So again, notice I've saved the page. I'm going to come back over here to the page. This is what it looked like before. And if I hit reload, this is what it looks like now. So anvil and cactus are sitting in front of, meaning closer to my eyes, on top of, meaning in reference to the picture that is now behind them, and we can see that the text is a little bit more readable because it contrasts against the background. And if that's not a good color, then of course I play with it. But that's a simple solution, and you'll notice that we did the solution to both of the questions with relatively little change to the document. 1, 2, 3, 4 different CSS rules, and then we simply wrapped the pictures inside of a figure element. Now there are other possible solutions to this. This is not the only solution, but this was a great solution suggested by students in the class because they worked together, they added their own knowledge, and they came up with a great practical solution. So I hope this short little video helps you as you troubleshoot and encourages you to talk to each other, to work together, to put your heads together, because two minds or more is always better than one. So good luck to you. I hope this is beneficial, and I'll see you on the discussion boards. Bye.